So without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Ed Dagang.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. Hello. And everyone there on the internet. I'm glad to be here today and participate in this wonderful conference. This is my 8th year participating in the conference and presenting Med School 101. And normally I would have a PowerPoint presentation, but technology cooperates sometimes, and it didn't today. So I'm just going to do it old school. A little bit about myself. I've been with the School of Medicine now and UC Davis for over 25 years. The majority of the time I've served as the Director of Admissions for the School of Medicine, and for a portion of the time as a Health Professions Advisor on the Davis campus. Over those 25 years, I've had a remarkable opportunity to work with 5 deans of admissions, numbers of faculty members, medical students, and individuals who have been involved in the process. I have worked with applicants over the years, many who are successful in matriculating to medical school, and for Davis, seeing a number of classes enter, and those students graduate after 4 years. So it's been a wonderful experience, and that's what I bring to today's presentation. UC Davis School of Medicine is one of the 5 UC medical schools. It's the smallest in terms of there's only 105 seats in each year's entering class. The only other Northern California UC schools at UC San Francisco, and the 3 remaining UC schools are in Southern California, UC Irvine, Los Angeles, and San Diego. I think we pride ourselves in the fact that we're very community oriented, and there is a sense of community among our medical students, where our medical students work together throughout their entire 4 years, as early as the basic science years and getting through the basic science coursework, as also supporting one another through the 3rd and 4th year clinical years in medical school. If you look at the types of activities our students involved in, we are the only UC medical school to have 7 student-run clinics serving underserved populations in Sacramento, and a number of our students every year are involved in global health activities around the globe. So really pride ourselves in our students' interest in working with a number of communities in our own backyards, as well as across the ocean. We use the American Medical College Application Service, AMCAS. We're one of over 100 medical schools that uses that application service. And that's the primary application that's used, where applicants will submit one application containing biographical information. They're also including their academic record, the courses they've completed, where they've completed them, the grades, the narrative descriptions of the extracurricular activities, honors awards, research, conferences they've attended, and then a personal statement. Through AMCAS, the applicant will indicate which medical schools they'd want that application to be sent to. And we recommend that, I recommend that applicants request that the application be sent to about 18 to 25 medical schools across the nation. Inasmuch as our California residents would like to earn their medical degree at a UC medical school, stay in California, practice in California, the reality is just, unfortunately, there's just not enough spots to accept all of our most qualified California residents. So many of our students end up out of state at fine medical schools that traditionally have accepted California residents. UC Davis, even as much as we don't give preference to University of California alumni, the majority of our students come from the UC system. The reason for that is the large number of applications that come from campuses such as UCLA, Berkeley, Davis itself, and the other UC campuses. They're very competitive students. They have a lot of wonderful experiences in the classroom and in research in the community. Just makes them for a very competitive applicant overall. For the past several years, UC Davis School of Medicine, the mean cumulative GPA for the entering class has been between a 3.6, 3.7 GPA. MCAT score, mean composite's about 31, 32. We do not make admissions decisions solely based upon GPA and MCAT scores. The admissions committee considers the entire application before rendering any application. Annually, our school receives between 4,500 to 5,000 applications. We only have 105 seats in our entering class. And in order to fill those 105 seats, the admissions committee will offer admissions to somewhere between, I'd say 180 to 200, 225 students annually. So the reality is many of the students that we do offer admission to are very competitive and have that opportunity to select from a number of other medical schools where they have received offers of admission as well. Second part of the application is a secondary application. The secondary application is an individual application for each medical school. From the 5,000 applications we receive annually, anywhere between 2,000 to 2,500 applicants are asked to submit secondary applications. For Davis specifically, the secondary application includes 4 short essay questions, a experience section that asks for the applicants to cite 3 significant, valuable experiences that they've had that have been motivational for them to pursue a career in medicine, as well as we request the letters of recommendation at that time. So we don't ask for secondary materials from everyone. So obviously there is some review and some screening to determine who the 2,000 to 2,500 applicants will be to submit those materials. We also ask for letters of recommendations as a part of the secondary. And I will say that the letters of recommendations are also a very critical part of the application. We request a minimum of 3 letters to a maximum of 6 letters. The sources may vary to include science professors, employers, research mentors, community service coordinators, directors, and other individuals the applicant may feel is supportive of their application to medical school. I just want to move back a couple of spots. In terms of GPA and MCAT scores, as I mentioned, we don't use those 2 factors only to make their admissions decisions. The numbers only drive us, the admissions committee, to reassure them that you'll be able to be successful as medical students, that you'll be able to complete the rigorous first 2 years of medical school curriculum. The MCAT scores are an indication that you'll be able to continue to be successful in the licensing exam. After the first 2 years of medical school, you'll be required to take and pass the USMLE Part 1. In your 4th year of medical school, Part 2 of the licensing exam. And I believe at the 2nd year of residency, another licensing exam at that point in time to be able for you to finalize your training. So, the numbers do not measure or not an indication of your empathy, compassion, your ability to treat your patients. It's just an indication of your ability to succeed in the academic portion of your medical school curriculum. And we would just want to make sure you're going to be successful with that. It's the rest of the application where we look at the secondaries, the letters of recommendations, and the interview that give us a sense of who you are as an individual and what else you bring to the admissions process. To get to the secondary and to the interview at Davis, we've already reviewed your application for the academics, and we've feel comfortable that you'll be successful with the schoolwork and the standardized testing. What's important for us then is to see your interpersonal skills, your people skills, and how you're going to be successful in your professional training, your clinical training in the 3rd and 4th year of medical school. So let me talk a little bit about the letters of recommendations because I want to spend a little bit of time with that. They're a very critical part of the secondary application. And in all honesty, I think the letters of recommendations could really make you a successful applicant to move on to an interview, but also at the same way, they can break you in the process and not end up with an interview. It's not who writes your letters of recommendations and the number of letter writers, it's the content of the letters and how strong and supportive those letter writers are of your promise and potential as a successful medical student and as a future physician. I have seen applications where everything looks good, academics, the personal statement, the secondary information, but one letter may present a red flag or cause some doubt on the admissions committee in terms of your personality, your behavior, your attitude that may impact on your professionalism while you're in medical school. So you have control, obviously, of the number of letters you're going to add to your file. You have control of the individuals that you're going to ask to write those letters of recommendations. You don't have control of the content of the letters, so it's very, very important that you select the individuals that know you well and that will be able to write you solid, competitive letters of recommendations. Let's see. So let's give you an example. A science professor letter. A science professor letter that states that you received an A in biochemistry winter quarter is a throwaway letter, all right? That same information can come from the academic record of your AMCAS application. But a letter from that same professor that's knowledgeable about your interpersonal skills, perhaps you attended all of the review sessions, and even though you weren't a tutor, you were helping your fellow classmates. Perhaps you helped that professor do a special project, or maybe even work in that professor's lab, or that professor knows about the kind of work you're doing in the community. If that individual can include that information in the letter of recommendation, that's a valuable letter of recommendation. And that's the content of all of the letters. We want to know the whole person. At an earlier session, somebody asked me, should I get a letter from a science professor or from my employer who I've worked for 6 years? And I said, how well do you know the science professor? Well, I got a good grade in the class, but I worked for this employer now for 6 years. And I said, you know what? That's 6 years out of your life while you were in college. That's an important letter. And even though it's not medically related, you can talk about what you learned. She was a salesperson, what she learned from interacting with the public, her responsibility and knowledge of the product. She shared that she was one of the top commission employees in the unit. And I said, that's all very important. That just enhances your application. So yes, by all means, include a letter from your employer. It doesn't need to be clinically or medically related. One other thing I do want to mention, that if in your personal statement, your secondary materials, or any information you use in a particular experience as something that's been very beneficial and valuable in terms of your own personal development, then it's important that you get a letter writer from that experience. Because without a letter writer from that experience, really creates a red flag. Are you telling the truth? Okay? So if you say that, I spent 3 years working in Dr. Jones' lab, and I helped her and her team work on a research project, but there's no letter from Dr. Jones, there's a problem with your file. Okay? Or, I spent 4 years working for this community service agency where at the end I was the fundraising activity and we were able to bring in $5,000 for a special event. If you don't have a letter recommendation from somebody associated with that experience, there's a problem with that. So make sure you get letters of recommendations from those sources that you feel are very important towards supporting your application to medical school. Very, very important. Letters also need to be current, meaning that they should reflect the year that you're applying. So if you're applying this coming summer, June of 2011, so the dates of your letters should reflect 2010, 2011. You do not want letters that are 2 or 3 years old, all right? If, say, for example, you're not successful this application period, you're a current applicant for 2010, and your letters reflect 2009, 2010, and you're going to be applying again in 2011, make sure you get letters that are 2010 and 2011. Go back to those letter writers and get current letters of recommendations. The admissions committee is looking for current information. All right. Let's see. Interviews. So how do we get from 2,500 secondaries to 400 to 450 interviews? At the beginning of the year, when we were getting together the team of faculty members involved with screening and evaluating applicants, the team leader, a faculty member that was working with what we call screeners, application reviewers, said, we're going to give you a stack of files. And in those stack of files, you're not to select any more than 3 to 4 people for an interview. 3 to 4 people for an interview, because we had to keep our interviews down to 400 to 450. And the key to getting an interview is that all of the pieces of the puzzle, from the AMCAS application, letters of recommendation, secondary materials, need to come together. They need to be very strong pieces of information to say, this person on paper looks wonderful. This individual will add something to the School of Medicine and to our health system and to the field of medicine. Let's now give this individual an opportunity to meet our faculty and others who are involved in the admissions process. And what I like to say is that those 400 to 450 people are able to contribute is what's called the wow factor. There's something very unique, something outstanding in their application. It's not necessarily clinical experience or research experience. It can be. It can be community service. It can be life experience. It can be a combination of all those things. But it's very unique, and it distinguishes them from the rest of the applicant pool. Okay? That's what I consider to be a wow factor. And there's a lot of activities out there, that opportunities for you to create your own wow factor. Because I can produce a list of what things successful applicants have done in the past, and you're all very bright and capable individuals. You'll take that list and you'll go out and do them, right? But we don't want that. We want to see what you bring to the admissions process, because we want unique individuals. That's what we're looking for at our medical school. That's what's probably all medical schools are looking for. So if you do a self-evaluation assessment now, you need to ask that question: what's my wow factor? What if the medical school admissions committee is going to be looking at my application? What's my wow factor? And if you don't necessarily have that wow factor, then it's time for you to go out and do that before you apply to medical school. Okay. And that's what's really important when you're making that decision when to apply. I talked earlier about how many medical schools to apply to. It's critical to apply early. At UC Davis, you should apply probably beginning in June through I'd say the end of July, even as late as the early part of August. You want to take the early MCAT. People who will be applying for application beginning summer of 2011 will start taking their MCAT in January. I'm a strong believer that you should take the MCAT before you apply to medical school. So that should be April, May, June, even as late as July. Can you take the MCAT in August and September? Yes, you can, but that really puts you late in the admissions process, because it does take about 30 to 45 days for that exam to be scored and the scores to be released. This year, UC Davis School of Medicine, we were on top of our game, and we started interviewing on September the 3rd. We've already completed 120 interviews. So folks that submitted their application later were asked to submit their secondary materials later, were screened in for the interview. Folks that are now being invited to interview at UC Davis School of Medicine are being invited for interview dates at the end of February. We've already filled up all of our interview dates through January. So you want to get your application in early, and that means taking your MCAT early. Now, when should you take the MCAT? You take the MCAT when you completed all the requirements and you feel that you're giving yourself time to study and prepare for the examination. Do not take the MCAT just to see what it looks like. Do not take the MCAT if you're missing a semester of physics or the last quarter of organic chemistry. Finish the sequence of courses. That's very important as well. And when do you start asking for your letters of recommendation? If you're going to be applying for medical school the summer of 2011, you should start collecting your letters of recommendations in January 2011. Go to those letter writers, introduce themselves, initiate a contact with them, maintain that contact, so probably later on in the winter and spring, you can go back to them with the information to have them send their letters to the AMCAS letter service, since we only use the AMCAS letter service. The worst thing that you can do for yourself is wait to request those letters of recommendations when the first secondary request is made for you. And sometimes that could be in June, July, and August. That's the summer. Letter writers go on vacation. Letter writers, some of the faculty members will take off on sabbatical. We have a couple of applicants this year that waited until June to ask for a letter recommendation. They had lined up two, which they believed to be perfect science professors in terms of strong supporters, knowledgeable of their accomplishments, would write them a superb letter of recommendation. When they went to that office, they found out the faculty members were on sabbatical. One was in Africa and one was in Asia, and weren't coming back for at least 6 months. What do? Travel to Asia and Africa to get those letters of recommendations? No, they had to hustle and find somebody else to write letters of recommendations, and they didn't necessarily feel comfortable with those folks. So you don't want to find yourself in that situation. Second thing I want to mention about science professors letters are important too, because they've advised and worked with successful applicants to medical school in the past, so they can compare you to other successful applicants in the past. Again, we don't just want letters that say you got an A in biochemistry, but definitely very informative with a lot of information about who you are as an individual. Every year I get, well, I go to a school where there's a large lecture and I don't get to know my professor and so on and so forth. Well, that excuse doesn't hold water, because your classmates are getting letters from those same professors, but they made a special effort to get to know that professor. So you too have that opportunity to do that, whether it's going to the review sessions or weekly discussions, doing a special project, maybe assisting the professor on a research project, whatever, interacting with that individual beyond just a lecture and taking notes, but actually allowing that individual to get to know you and your abilities and what you can accomplish. Lastly, I want to talk about the interview. This is the first year that UC Davis School of Medicine is actually implementing what's called the multiple mini interview process. Up until now, there have only been 2 schools in the U.S., University of Cincinnati and UCLA Prime, that has been using the multiple mini interviews. This year, UC Davis, we started using it in September. I understand that in November, Stanford University will be implementing the MMI, and there's talk that UCLA will be implementing the MMI this year as well. The MMI has been compared to speed dating. Anybody been involved in speed dating? I haven't. But what it is short encounters. You're given a scenario, a situation, real life situations. It doesn't rely upon your knowledge in chemistry or biochemistry or clinical experiences or research or those types of situations. They're real life experiences. And you're given 2 minutes to read a situation, and then you go into the room and meet with an individual, and you have 8 minutes to reply. And it varies from school to school in terms of the number of stations that you'll interact with individuals. And it varies from school to school in terms of what those scenarios and cases are. Is it an improvement from the process in the past? I believe so. Traditionally, for the majority of the time I've been with UC Davis School of Medicine, our applicants would spend 45 minutes to an hour with a faculty member, with a medical student. The questions can range from, why do you want to be a doctor? Tell me about your winter quarter of 2010 where you got a C-. What would your chemistry lab partner think about you? Tell me about your extracurricular activities, so on and so forth. And you'd have an opportunity to respond to those questions. Now they're very specific, and you have, again, 8 minutes to express yourself. How do you prepare? It doesn't come from a lecture. It doesn't come from a textbook. It comes from life experiences. That's how you prepare for the MMI. What did you learn from your extracurricular activities, your community service, your clinical experience, your teamwork, your research, your employers? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about working with other people, your communication skills? The scenarios or the situations that are going to be presented to you in the MMI are going to rely upon what you've learned from those types of experiences in your life experiences. That's how you're going to prepare. So, in 45 minutes time, you're not going to be able to charm your interviewer and thinking you're the most wonderful person. But also, on the other hand, the traditional way you'll spend with a faculty member and a medical student, maybe it was a bad day for the faculty member and you don't connect and you don't click and you don't feel you did a good interview. But the medical student feels that, whoa, I want this person to be my classmate. Well, where does the admissions committee make a decision from that? Or you may have both interviewers saying that, no, I don't think this person's a fit for our medical school, probably should reapply or do something else, so on and so forth. Now you have a number of individuals that are considering your application and your credentials. And let's say if you have 10 stations, maybe you can blow 2 stations, but 8 other individuals think you're a wonderful person and want to offer you admission to the medical school. So that's why we feel it's more fair and unbiased for the applicants. In fact, the folks that you meet on the MMI circuit haven't read your application. So they don't know if you're from Yale or you went to Cal State East Bay. They don't know that you had a C- in microbiology or you withdrew your winter quarter of your junior year. They don't know anything of that. All they know is what's presented in front of them. The folks that do have access to that information are those individuals that already identified, you know what, this person is bright, this person has experiences that add value to our medical school. We want to bring that person to an interview. And the next group of people that are going to be reviewing that information are the people that are making admissions recommendations. So those are the only people that have that, the GPA and the schools and what you did in terms of experience, so on and so forth, not the people that you meet in those encounters. So that levels the playing field for everybody. Okay. I'm going to stop there and see if there are any questions from the audience in front of me or those on the internet. Questions? Yeah.
Well, seeing that you haven't actually initiated the MMI protocol, do you feel that person will be less nervous being in front of you, going through these stations, or versus sitting?
Actually, we've already completed 6 MMI circuits. So we've had 120 applicants go through, and the majority of the feedback from those 120 applicants is very positive. Yes, they come to the interview day very nervous, very anxious. This is brand new. I've never heard about it. We do send them a number of information points, places on the internet to get more information about the MMI. Obviously, we don't give them the scenarios because we want it to be fresh and we want it to see what their responses are going to be at the time of the meeting. But we do give them some sense of what it's like. And as I said, it's been very well received. And folks that were anxious and nervous about it have come out going, well, that was lots of fun. And I'm in the core area as we're going through the circuits. And I'm surprised at the number of students that are leaving the rooms with smiles on their faces, rather than those that are just going, oh, I'm really dreading this. And it varies. I think there's some folks that find it to be very interesting and a new way of doing things, and others that wish they had that traditional opportunity to share everything that they feel that admissions committees need to know. But I think for the most part, it's been very positive. There will be a lot of research that's going to be coming out of the results of this. Obviously, as I said, it's supposed to be a better measure of the 3rd and 4th year. So our students haven't even started yet. So we'll have to wait to see, does it really correlate with success in the 3rd and 4th year? But at least initially, we'll be able to get some feedback in terms of what the students thought about this process versus the traditional process, and what they thought about some of the situations and scenarios. Yes, in the back.
You put a lot of emphasis on how someone with a more traditional application with less experience with working with various places and focusing more on the sciences at a disadvantage?
No, because it depends upon how that individual expresses him or herself about those experiences. Right? How did they present it? What light did they present it under? What wow factor did they present it for what would be perceived to be, traditional experiences? Because that is your experience, and it's what you make it out to be, right? So no, I don't think it's going to put you at a disadvantage. It depends upon how you present it. All the way in the back.
Kind of running with that. As far as the wow factor is concerned, is there a too much wow? And if you have like a dark past as far as like early education are concerned, do you really look at progression?
Yeah, the admissions committee does take a look at, in terms of academic record, the last 2 years. So how did you do your junior and senior year, especially when you are completing the upper division advanced biology courses, the rigorous courses, courses that are considered to be comparable to the medical school curriculum, okay? So they're going to be interested in seeing what the trend was. So if you show an upward increasing trend in the last 2 years, that's going to help your application. I had an applicant from the earlier session. She said, you know what? I had a really bad semester. I withdrew all of my classes. How do I talk about that? And I said, 1 paragraph, 4 to 5 sentences. You don't have to give the gory details, but just make sure you talk to the admissions committee and say, you know what? I didn't do well. There was just stuff happening in my life. But look at my record now. Look how I've been able to turn it around.
Is it limited in how much that you could send in as far as the essay is concerned?
Yeah, I think it's 5,400 words. And you want to use it. And obviously you want to use it wisely, but you're not able to present everything that you've accomplished. So you may have to select maybe the most 2 or 3 and include something about an academic record if you want to. Remember, this is your first and truly only introduction to the admissions committee. And I hear applicants say, I'm limited in the space, and limited in the amount of information I can share. I'll wait until the secondary. I'll wait until the interview. We don't ask for secondary applications for everyone. And those secondary applications are very specific, so you'll not be able to address that. And with only 400 to 450 interviews, you may never get to the interview. So it's critical that that personal statement, encourage the admissions committee to move you on to capture more information about you. That's why you need to spend really some time in developing that personal statement. You're welcome. Any other questions? Yes, back there.
As far as the letters of recommendation, do you consider science professors to be more valuable as opposed to somebody you knew like your whole life?
Again, it's not the science it's not the source. It's the quality and the content of the letter. I think a worthless letter is your next door neighbor who's a doctor and has watched you grow up, but has no observational skills with you, just known you as a person. That doesn't help. But if that same neighbor you've shadowed in practice for a number of years, maybe you became the office manager, maybe you helped with a special project with a patient, that's a valuable letter from that person, okay? But just knowing somebody for a number of years, that just because you know them, find another source, okay?
Okay, like in my case, what if I've been doing like community service and a lot of outreach and a lot of stuff all through like my middle school and high school years with the same agency and organization, but now that I'm in college and don't have the time for that, like the time for all of it, would the person that I've been working under for all that time, that wouldn't be a reliable source?
No, it'll be a reliable source, especially if that individual has seen you progress and take on more responsibility. What you do in high school, we're not interested in. What we're interested in is what you've accomplished in college and how you've continued the progression, okay? One thing I wanted to just tap into what you said. Now that I'm in college, I can't do other stuff. You have to make sure you do other stuff, okay? Right? because you just can't count on one experience. In as much as it may be valuable and significant, it's helped you make a decision you want to go into medical school, you need to branch out. Is there time for questions on the internet?
Yeah, Ed, there's been a lot of questions throughout the day, not just in today's session, but throughout the day, from students who are still relatively early in their pre-med career. They're freshmen or they're sophomores, and they're wondering when they should get started with the activities, the experiences, the research. And I think it goes nicely with what we're talking about right now. Is it ever too early, which I think I know the answer to, but I guess what is appropriate for a freshman to take on? What is appropriate for a sophomore to take on beyond their classwork? And how can freshmen and sophomores who are still relatively early in their pre-med career get the kind of information that helps them make those kinds of decisions?
I think first and foremost for the students in their early stages of undergraduate career is to focus on their academics first. Set a foundation, stabilize that foundation, manage their study skills, recognize that they can't attend every party, that they're going to have to give up some activities. And after they recognize that and accept it, then they can add an activity or other activities. Time management is critical. And what admissions committees don't want to see is somebody who just jumps in and does all these activities, but their academic record suffers. And then the applicant says, well, I was involved in all these activities, so something had to go. It can't be your academic record, right? In medical school, what I see our medical students responsible for are a number of activities. It's not just 25, 26, 27 units of academic work, but in addition to that, it's life. In addition to that, it's student-run clinics. There are other committees that they're involved in, and they're able to do that and be successful as medical students. And as first-year and second-year students, you need to establish yourself on some firm ground in those areas, and then begin undertaking other activities, and then learn how to manage your time, and especially to find time for your family, for yourself, and to sleep.
Well, let me ask this because it's a nice follow-up, and it's coming in from the Twitter feed. A student is wondering where do hobbies outside of the medical focus fit? For example, students are oftentimes very involved in sports or in music, theater, art, and that takes up a lot of their time. How valuable is that? And can that be a central activity that they then highlight, or a set of experiences that they highlight as one of the strengths that they bring as an applicant to medical school?
Definitely, because it's a passion for that individual. It could be fly fishing is a passion. It could be the music. It could be, being in the symphony orchestra or being on the choir. And if they've been, devoted to those activities for a number of years, what did they gain? What type of rewards are they gaining from that experience, and how they write about it and describe it? Letters of recommendations from folks that, the band director, the symphony director, the choir director. Maybe the individual has a passion for working with Special Olympics and has been doing that for years. Or maybe because of a disease in their family, they've worked with children or adults on summer camps, and they've taken that experience and applied it to there. Those all have very valuable and significant, not necessarily impact, but they're very valuable to the development of that person and what they find important to themselves. I consider that to be wow factor.
I actually have a question coming in from the Twitter feed too. I was looking for an example of a wow factor that you heard about recently. What made it so good?
And I'm not going to give you an example. And I'm not going to give you an example because, again, you're bright and you're capable. And if I give you an example, you're going, ooh, that was a wow factor, I'm going to go do it. Again, I want to see what your wow factor is. That's what the admissions committee is looking for. We can produce a list, what's impressed us, what other people have done to be successful applicants to medical school, but we don't want that. We want to see what you come up with. That's what's important to us. What's your passion? You know, I can say teach for America. Is everyone interested in teaching for America? Probably not. I can say, you know, working with the tsunami. I can't even think of what I was saying, but working with the tsunami efforts. Maybe you don't want to do that. Are you doing it because that's what Ed said? Teach for America and go working with tsunami volunteers? We don't want that. So it depends upon what your interests are.
Are you also running for political office, Ed? That was a great non-answer answer.
I've been listening to a lot of political ads.
Mm-hmm. We have time for maybe one more question.
If I have a few moments, I just want to finish up in terms of requirements. One thing that I want to make sure people understand about UC Davis School of Medicine, we're the only UC medical school that has an advanced biology requirement, 1 semester or 2 quarters of upper division biochemistry, genetics, molecular cell biology. Only UC medical school that has the requirement. Lab is not required, okay? But it needs to be completed in addition to the 1-year biology with lab, all right? One thing that also, how many of you in the audience here in front of me have AP credit? AP credit, raise your hands proudly because AP credit is really a bear. Okay, look at each school in terms of how they recognize AP credit. Not all schools accept AP credit. So you can't just satisfy the English requirement through AP credit, some schools. Some schools require you to take classes. Some schools won't let you just do AP credit to satisfy math or general chemistry. You have to take some advanced courses in that subject area. So look at that very closely. I ran into an applicant today who now is finishing up the last quarter at Berkeley, sociology major, and was told by the advisor that, oh, you just need to complete these courses. And when he was completing our secondary application, and it said, what courses did you satisfy to complete the upper division requirement? And he said, I don't have any, and I'm not going to be able to finish them. Well, his decision was continue with the process or apply, and hopefully the admissions committee is going to overlook it. But we don't admit anybody or offer admission to anyone unless they completed all of the pre-med requirements. So that's why it's very critical that you look at the requirements for each medical school that you apply to. Okay? Yes, sir.
Transfer student, where I'm coming from, Southern California. The community college that I go to does not offer the molecular biology.
Yeah, community college only offers lower division courses. So upper division courses have to be completed at a 4-year school. So it has to be CSU or UC or private college or universities. But community college does not offer upper division. So let me talk about how many of you are non-traditional students who are returning to community college to complete the pre-med requirements. Okay, so advice. Yes, you can do that. Before you apply to medical school, complete 20 to 30 units of upper division advanced biology at a 4-year college. Before you apply and before you take the MCAT. All right? Strong words of advice. That'll just put you in a better light with admissions committees. Anything else? Anything on Twitter?
Well, let me, I think we've come to the end of our session. Let's thank Ed Dagang, Director of Admissions at UC Davis Medical School. And let's thank him for his expertise and for his willingness to share his insights with us today. So thank you.
Thank you.